initially about team news. How's everyone coming back from the international breaks? Is everyone well and not injured?
No, quite good. Everybody reported back in today, but it was a little bit odd FIFA window because the Asian Olympic qualifiers allowed them to play 3 games, so they all reported back in later, and they landed early this morning, so obviously they couldn't be on the pitch today. So tomorrow we hope we can have more players on the pitch.
Yeah, definitely. That must be, I guess, difficult managing those separate international windows, especially when you've got players from various teams, various international teams, especially when they're so close to such a vital game against City.
Yeah, and it is, but at the same time with the City game, I think both teams are very much in a similar position. They also have a lot of teams or a lot of players that were involved in the Asia Olympic qualifiers, for example. So yes, it's difficult. It's not ideal, but I think it's quite well spread across both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Leading into this game against Manchester City, they're a team obviously that you come up against a number of times, a team with great attacking strength. And for you to be in a position now where you have Beth Mead back, where you have Vivianne Miedema, and also Leah Williamson, who's been an outstanding signing so far, you must be pleased getting the team into the best possible position ahead of such an important game.
Yeah, I think I was pleased to the way that we were growing and developing during the last block. We're still obviously in a process with both Beth and Viv returning from long-term injuries, where they're still not fully having managed their return to play process, which is very natural, but it's still something to consider for us also being in this block here, and looking forward to face a good football team in Manchester City.
They've both spoken Viv and Beth have both spoken so honestly about mental health and the difficulties of being injured. Beth in particular spoke about losing her mother and also getting the injury so close to close. How has it been, I guess, for you as a manager, managing that, supporting players from a mental health perspective as well as obviously their performance on the pitch?
I think it's a huge part, not only of the game, but of everyday life. I think it's definitely a generational thing to becoming emotionally literate, to being to put words and to identify your emotions. Even I see myself as quite young, but I still come from a generation where we didn't speak as openly about emotions as younger generations do, and I think that is really helpful, and I think that can help a lot of people, both to understand how they are feeling and what they are feeling, but more importantly to get the support, and I think that's so important to understand that probably everyone at points in your life needs support from a mental perspective. So that's very natural. So I think it's great when we have role models on the very top that speaks about those situations, because I think it can encourage a lot of people that look up to them to also understand that it's natural for them to seek help in situations.
Of course. I want to ask you lastly about the Arsenal team picture that came out. We got a lot of reaction on social media due to the lack of diversity within the squad, and a number of players have spoken back from various teams, but I think Jen Beattie made a good point about representation being important from a top level as well as academy level. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and I guess were you surprised by the reaction that you saw online?
I haven't seen much reaction online to start with, but I think where we come from, North London, we're very proud of our community, and it is a diverse community. The history of the club, both the men's first team and the women's first team, has a very proud history of players coming from diverse backgrounds as well, and made the club very proud of that. So us not having that diversity in the first team women's today, of course that is a problem. I think women's football has a diversity problem in that, in getting especially people of color involved more in football, not only at the top level, but also at grassroots level. And I think we have to work with that, but also the FA and other clubs.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vivianne. Robert at the back there.
Hi, Jonas. I was going to first of all ask you about the match on Sunday. If you look at both sides, there's a number of international players with the England Lionesses. So there's a lot of excitement for the fans, not just Arsenal and Man City fans, but also the England fans. when you look at like Alicia and Chloe Kelly, what she did in the Euro final. I was just going to get your thoughts on that overview.
Yeah, that's not really on top of my mind, to be honest. I think I care a lot about Arsenal. I care a lot about the fans to the Arsenal, and that's the priorities. Then I think, as a neutral, it's going to be a great football match because it's two great football teams, and there's a lot of great football players from both teams.
What are your thoughts about going back to Meadow Park for this match, and also the incentive of closing the gap at the top with City with a win and getting back to level points with them?
Yeah, I think our ambition is always to try and win football matches, and that's not any difference today on Sunday. It's a long time since we were at Meadow Park now, being Villa at the last game of the league last season. And we always had great experiences at Meadow Park with like great support. It's a very intimate atmosphere. We really are at that crossroad at the moment where we're having great experiences at the Emirates. I understand that it is not quite as easy for the club to just move all our games to the Emirates because there is a lot of logistics. There is a lot of know-how that needs to transcend into that, and we see the trajectory on how we're doing that is that we're playing more and more league games every year at the Emirates. So I think that is a natural process, and it needs to take a little bit of time. But as always, we look forward to playing in front of our home fans, and they've been incredible, and we know it's going to be a sellout on Sunday. So we're going to try and do our very best.
Brilliant, thank you. Catherine, the Mail.
Hi. Katie McCabe had a bit of a strange international game on Tuesday where the Republic of Ireland were playing Albania, and they started the game and there was a lot of water on the pitch. I think it stopped for about an hour, then restarted. I was just kind of wondering how she was, because obviously, I guess, not ideal sort of stopping for that period of time, then replaying the game, and obviously the conditions weren't particularly great either.
No, Katie's fine. I think that's football. Sometimes it rains when you play football. Sometimes it's windy. Sometimes you forget about that when you're at our level and you think that all pitches are this almost golf green like things, but not all football pitches around the world are like that either. So at the end of the day, the referee decides if the pitch is playable or not. And if it's not playable, you might have to stop and you have to try and make it playable. So I don't think that's any controversy at all.
Yeah, and then just on Katie more generally, I mean, she seems to be kind of in some of the best form of her career. I think she scored 3 and assisted 2 in the first leg of that game, scored 2 in your last game. Have you kind of noticed sort of not a step up in her, but almost like that she is kind of really, really confident and sort of playing some of the best football that she has, since her time at Arsenal?
I think Katie McCabe is a quality player coming into her peak age years of playing football. She has a tremendously good left foot that putting in right use can be a really good way to getting points, both with assists and goals, and she's been using that lately, and that's been really pleasing to see from, a number of different positions, both in the national team and at the club team. So it's been very impressive for her.
Thanks, Catherine. Morgan from The Guardian.
Hi, Jonas. You touched on there just before about how you're sharing sort of time between the Emirates and sort of Meadow Park, and you're soaking in those experiences. I was just kind of wanting to get your reaction to sort of the news that over at Brighton and Hove, the council gave permission for the first purpose-built women's stadium for the locations for that to go ahead. How well do you think that, or how do you think that will enable sort of development across the WSL, and also how do you think that may be steps that could be something for the future?
Is the question of if a purpose-built stadium for Arsenal women would be? Yeah, I think hard part is to say what would be a good size of that stadium now. How will that look in 5 to 10 years' time? I think that's where we're at a really difficult time, but exciting time in order to try and predict the future. Because I think if somebody would have said 5 years ago what a good size stadium would have been looking at for Arsenal women, I think that would have been a completely different answer than what you would have said today. And I think the answer that most people would say today would be a good size. I think in 5 years' time, people will say, oh, that's too small. And maybe then Emirates is of the perfect size for it. So I think it depends all on the club for it. But the ability to sell out stadiums, I think it's a very important component in football. Because I always think it's a special feeling in going into a sell-out stadium. It creates a really good atmosphere. It creates intimacy to it. And I think it becomes easier also to drive ticket sales because there becomes scarcity. And you need to act early to get your tickets. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. So I think for each club to get that decision right of what the ideal size of the stadium is to both enable growth but also to create the best possible atmosphere and to be able to entertain partners and so on, it's super important to grow the game. So that's probably great news for Brighton.
Thanks, Morgan. We'll come to the call now. Tim, do you want to begin?
Yeah, sure. Before I ask my question, I just wanted to get some specifics on the team news with Lena Herzig and Amanda Illichstedt. I saw Leah Williamson came off in the Switzerland game. Whether they'll be available.
Yeah, they're all in contention for Sunday. It was Lena couldn't travel because she had an injury that wouldn't have made it possible for her to play any of the 2 games. So it didn't make sense for her to go, but it doesn't rule her out for this weekend. Amanda did travel, but the game here on Tuesday came too quick. Still doesn't rule her out here on the weekend. That's why she traveled back. And Leah Welty was in the moment. She had to go off, but that's not anything that concerns us long term.
Okay, thank you. And just my actual kind of question is around this season. One of your challenges around, I'd say, balancing squad rotation and chemistry, maybe not the challenge you had in your first 2 seasons. You had a big squad in your first season, maybe not all the players you wanted. Couldn't really rotate last season due to injuries, but now you've got lots of options. I think I can see it in team selection, different game plans. And how do you assess that challenge between rotation and maintaining the team chemistry? Maybe like Man City got at the moment.
Yeah, it's. I think the starting point, and this is really important for any manager, the starting point has to be what's best for the team. If the starting point is to trying to please all players in the squad, that's never going to be possible. And that's one of the things that you will ask any manager with a big squad and saying, of course, that's the problem with it, is how you keep everyone motivated for all performances that they have. And I think we work really well with that. The players work really well with that. The benefits is that we have lots of option, we have lots of competition in the squad, but the decisions on which player to play can never be based on niceness. It can't be based on to please anyone either. It has to be based on what's best for the team. And we will have a block now in front of us where we will play a lot of matches. It's going to be tighter turnaround times than it was in the first block, and that will mean that we will be needing to use the squad in a deeper way than we did in the first block. And I'm actually very excited about that because I think we have a lot of qualities in the squad, and I'm really looking forward to see the players play.
Thanks, Jonas. See you Sunday.
See ya.
Thanks, Tim. We'll take a few more from the call. Dan?
Hey, Jonas, hope you're well. It feels like every game this season has really, really challenged you in a different way. So, how pleased are you that the team have been able to kind of solutionise and, score the goals to be able to get points from what have been some quite difficult situations?
Yeah, I think from a mentality perspective, you see the players have been excellent. I think they kept their composure really well, and even if we have been tight for times, a couple of times in games, they have continued to take good decisions and being able to stack situations upon each other to create a lot of pressure against the opponent. So that part has been really good. What I don't want us to be a team is to leave things that late and to be depending on those margins, because sometimes those margins goes your ways and sometimes they just not. And as a team, we need to be able to A, create more, but B, also to capitalize better on what we create earlier in the games, to be able to play with a better scoreline more often.
Okay, thanks, Jonas. Best of luck for the weekend. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Asif from Forbes.
Hi, Jonas. Over half of Manchester City's goals this season have been headers. Defending crosses has been identified as a weakness in your defence before. So do you think the purchase of Amanda Ilestedt in particular is something that can help you there, or against City is it more important to stop the crosses coming in?
It's a good reflection on City. Together with Chelsea, they are the two best teams on attacking crosses, and they use it quite often as well as a weapon. And there is two ways you need to deal with that. One is, like you're saying, is to stop the number of crosses, and you need to have a good structure in order to do that. Secondly, you need to make sure that you have the right structure and the right qualities in order to deal with that. And they have some really strong aerial threats, Man City, but also some good quality on their crossing feeds. So you need to have a combination of it. And yes, Amanda is one player that is very strong dealing with aerial duels, but we also have others.
Thanks, Jonas. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Asif. Joe?
Hi, Jonas. I hope you're doing okay. Just one question from me on goalkeepers. Is Manuela Zinsberger your definitive number one now? And what can Sabrina D'Angelo do to get back into the starting lineup?
On the first question, no, we don't have any permanent team selection at Arsenal. Every game is selected by game basis. Two, Sabrina, like any other player in Arsenal, they focus on their strengths and what they can bring to the team, and they try to do that as good as possible, and that gives them the best possible way of being selected to start.
Cheers, mate. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Tom?
Hi, Jonas. Nice to see you. Can I just ask you, how much better do you think Man City are this season compared to last season?
I think they were really good last spring. I think you saw them there. They beat Chelsea quite comfortable at home, and I think everybody at that point was starting to talk about them as title contenders and so on. And then at that point they came to Meadow Park, and we, despite injuries and despite a really tough playing program there in the Champions League, we put on a really strong performance and managed to win that game. But I think City's been playing really well for a long time, and I think they've been carrying on doing the same thing as they did last spring on here to the new season, which makes a lot of sense because they have had a lot of consistency in both the way they play, because they have the same coach, but also because they kept the same players and been able to play with them.
Okay, thank you, Jonas, and see you Sunday.
See you.
Thanks, Tom. And finally, Amy?
Hi, I was just wondering about the, you've signed, obviously, Naomi signed a professional contract in the summer, and you signed Corinne Newcross, who's also a young player from the summer. When are they going to be making more into starting lineups? Because obviously Naomi, we haven't seen her on the pitch so far this season, and Cairo's only had one appearance for the club so far.
Yeah, like I said to Tim before, I think this block here is obviously going to provide more opportunities. I think it's natural, and it's always impossible for you guys because you don't see everything behind the closed doors here at London Colney, to say when you come in new into a team, everyone will have a different starting, how do you say that, like how long the starting distance is?
Yeah, like a run in.
Yeah, like the run-in for it. And what I can say with all the players that we have in the squad, and the two you're mentioning here, is they work really well. I know they will do really well when they get opportunities as well to play. And we will have lots of opportunities this block coming up.